Hi, I'm Lisa from Flex Hoof Boots and this is my horse Ali. Today I want to talk to you about trimming your own horse's hooves. One of the best ways that you can keep your horse's hoof in a healthy condition and also keeping your flex boots fitting really well is by trimming your horse's toes every week. Trimming your horse's hooves once a week, just a little bit, is a really good way to mimic the natural wear that your horse would get if they were moving around over varied terrain for many kilometres every day. Added benefits of weekly trims is that you are keeping your horse's hoof in balance throughout the entire cycle, okay? And you are also keeping your flex hoof boots perfectly fitted to your hoof every single time you put them on. So come along with me and I'll take you through the basics and show you how to do that.
In this video, we're going to look at what parts of the hoof that you need to know about, how to know where to trim the toe, how to trim the toe safely, and how to finish the hoof from the top. So we're going to have a look at the anatomy of the sole. Here we've got the hoof wall, the sole, the central sulcus, the frog, the collateral grooves, the bars, and the heel bulbs. You can imagine the bottom of the hoof like a clock face, with the toe between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, the heels at 7 and 5, and the quarters on the side in between. Shown here in this diagram is the internal anatomy of the hoof wall that you're going to need to worry about. We have the outer hoof wall in brown, the inner hoof wall in grey, we have the sensitive lamina and the corium there in the pink, the lamina line in yellow, and then we have the sole, which is in brown. So the weight-bearing surface of the hoof is a little bit on the sole, the lamina line, a little bit on the inner hoof wall, and the outer hoof wall is non-weight bearing. So I'm going to show you shortly how to do this on a real foot in a video, but what we want to do is we want to find the back of the foot, then we find the middle of the foot, and the distance between those 2 points we project forward, and then that there is our breakover line. It is not a trim line, okay? So here's a real foot we're going to trim today. The toe is where we're going to trim. This hoof has got about 2 weeks worth of growth. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up the flaps on the frog at the back of the hoof here so that I can see clearly what's going on at the back of the hoof so I can find where the back of the hoof is. So I'm just tidying up the frog, just taking flaps off. So the first way that you find the back of the foot is you look at where the V dimples are. I'm marking them out here with a pen at the back of the foot where the collateral grooves are. The second part is the V dimple at the back of the central sulcus there. And then we look at the flat surface of the frog versus the back of the frog here. And there's like a bit of a fulcrum point there. And that line there is one of 3 ways to find the back of the foot. So here I'm marking the back of the foot here. We just take an average of those 3 marks. So the next thing that we're doing here is we're cleaning out the bars so that we can find the center of the foot. So in the bars, we have got lamina line. The bar is just an extension of the hoof wall. It hooks around at the heel and comes into the bar here. So at the end of the bar, there's lamina material and often a bar crack. So I'm just marking out the area where the bar crack is there. And then we're going to zoom in a little bit and we're going to see the end of the lamina line in the bar. Might be a little bit hard to appreciate on the hoof here, but you can see a small yellow line. And the end of that yellow line, and I'm just cleaning up the bar a little bit more here to see a little bit better. The end of that bar line is right where I'm going to place a mark, right there. Doomp, right there. So the next thing we're going to do is find the widest part of the foot. And the easiest way to do that is to use your rasp or a flat edge, okay? And then we can move it across to the edge of the foot and we mark the edge of the sole that is the widest part there. See how that was the last piece of the sole before the rasp actually moved over to the wall? So I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll move it over and then right there, boom, is where the widest part of the foot is, okay? So see how they kind of line up? The third thing we're going to do here is we're going to find the bar swells. So if you push your fingers down through the collateral grooves, you will find a tightening right here. And that aligns with an anatomical landmark on the pedal bone itself. So I'll just show you that again. And we push down through and we have there's a tightening. okay? So I'll show you that on a bone. So this is the bottom of a pedal bone, and you can see these arrows are pointing to a little lump in the bone, and that's the bar swell, and you can feel that from the outside. So this is roughly what the pedal bone would look like if you're looking down at the sole, and the tightening that you feel in the collateral grooves is pointed out right here, and the bars to actually tie into that area. They can't proceed further forward than that area, so when the heels run forward, what happens is the bars actually curl and then they lay over the sole. So that is because the bar swells block the bars from running forward, but the heels are run forward. So now let's have a look at trimming the toe safely. Here we have the toe and heel pillars in purple, and in green is your toe callus. Now the toe platforms and the toe callus are really important landmarks to preserve when we're trimming, because those structures actually protect the tip of the pedal bone from being, bruised, or it's just a reinforcement there at the tip of that pedal bone. So people can be quite scared of taking the hoof back to the 50-50 line, but if we preserve those areas, it will protect that pedal bone and the horse won't go sore. So trimming the toe, to do our bevel, we want to do a 20-degree angle through the laminar line and then a 45-degree angle through the inner hoof wall and the outer hoof wall. Here you can see I've projected that line forward into the toe, and I'm just going to trim back to that 50-50 line on this toe. I'm doing that on a shallow angle, and then so there's my shallow angle, and then there's my more steep angle, my 45-degree angle. And you can see here I'm trimming off the toe, but see how my hoof wall is not as thin in the toe pillar area, and I'm kind of feathering out my trim in the toe area so that I'm not taking off too much hoof wall at the side in the toe pillars. Here I'm pointing out the toe callus, and I'm not coming into that toe callus very much, and I am preserving those toe pillars. I'm coming around and I'm just rounding off that rough edge that the bevel creates. And that's pretty much all you need to do if you are an owner trimmer. Now, finishing the trim from the top, you don't have to do this, but what we're going to do here, so here's the hoof from the side, I'm just taking off that rough edge and just smoothing around. You can see here I'm just feeling for any flaring, and I'm just smoothing off that sharp edge, okay? Your hoof care provider, your trimmer, should be doing this for you in between trims, at professional trims, and then in between trims you probably won't need to do too much of this. And you can do it from the bottom of the hoof as well. But I'm just smoothing out that edge so that the horse isn't going to cut itself, and so that my bevel lasts longer. Because as the hoof wall grows down, we don't want that outer hoof wall to be weight bearing too much. So I'm just explaining to the owner what I'm doing, just perfecting that bevel from the top. So here we can see that's the hoof trim, the toe trim finished. Thanks so much for watching.